Do we have any specials this evening? Anyone we have bring forth or request? If not, we turn into Corinthians, if you would. 1 Corinthians, chapter 13. Read through the charity here. We need to be having towards all. And just simply read this real quick for starters. 1 Corinthians 13 and 1. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. Though I have the gift of prophecy and understanding all mysteries, all knowledge, though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, have not charity, I am nothing. Though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, and is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, and is not easily provoked, and thinketh no evil. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Charity never faileth. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know even as also I'm known. And now abideth faith, hope, and charity, these things, but the greatest of these is charity. And we, I hope, strive to forever we have the compassion of Christ through us, that we have this true love and charity of Christ in us. But this evening I want to look, as we find in verse 5, that charity, it doesn't behave itself unseemly. It doesn't seek after its own. It is not easily provoked. And the reason that it is not easily provoked is that it thinketh no evil. Those go together in there, that thinketh no evil. As we find in verse 12, for now we see through a glass darkly. Sometimes we acknowledge openly that we don't understand everything of God. We don't understand all of God's will. We don't see everything. We can accept by faith His will. We say that. Sometimes our attitudes are contrary. But I'm going to take verse 12, though, and I want to reflect it back up into verse 5 with this, thinketh no evil. We don't always know everything that's going on, not just in God's Word, but in other people's lives. We don't always know what's going on in situations. We don't know what they're struggling with, what they're dealing with. We don't know their base information that they are making their decisions off of. Unfortunately, the word assumption can come into play. We have assumptions sometimes, and sometimes people lean negatively. They have a tendency to lean negative, have a tendency to assume in a different manner, and we end up making decisions off of situations based off of what we come up with and where we're at, and with half-truths. And we do see things through a glass darkly, even in other people's lives, or their lives. We only see what we see, and then sometimes we don't even really see that because we come up with our conclusion. That's why the thinketh no evil. We need to not assume the worst. Not assume someone, well, I know what he's really saying. I know what he meant. I know what he did. That he did. We start saying things, and we start thinking things, and it affects us, and then we become provoked. How many troubles, how many turmoils, how many disputes and strifes have you seen because there was a misunderstanding? Just a simple misunderstanding led to a big drama, a big strife, a big turmoil, and it got everybody included. They started picking sides, and it just things can escalate way out of hand. And you take it all back to the root, as I've been trying to speak of lately. It goes back to someone didn't realize that only part of the story. Then, what little bit they do, they based off of a negative assumption or a conclusion on their own, that they included a little evil thought, and then they were provoked. It is easier to apply verse 5. It is not easily provoked. Charity is not easily provoked because it thinketh no evil. In my own life, I need to kind of take out that comma, let's say for my application, for me, and not put it as a sequence, not put it as a list of things about charity. It's not like we have a list of charity doesn't do this, and charity doesn't do this, and charity doesn't do this. We don't take the fruit of the Spirit and say that it is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, meekness, temperance. We can list that, but is the fruit of the Spirit the 8 things, or is it all of those together? It's all love. Charity is all of these as well. If I have struggles being easily provoked, it's because I'm allowing myself to think evil with that. So again, how I base things and my thoughts. If I have a more loving thought, I can control my thoughts then. In Philippians 4, we know this passage very well, and we're going to know all of the passages well that we're looking at this evening, because this is not a difficult, it's not a new, it's not like one that try to teach you something new. I can't. I just try to remind us to do what we know. And to think on things that are lovely and kind, to think on innocent things, to think on good things, and not to allow the evil come in, and definitely not to be spreading evil, not to be spreading lies. So in Philippians 4, though, in verse 4, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Let your moderation be known unto all men, the Lord is at hand. Be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your request be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Now, the sequence that we did read in 1 Corinthians 13, where charity is not easily provoked, and it thinketh no evil, combine that with this right here, the peace of God. Something that is peaceful has not been provoked, right? If it's peaceful, it's not been provoked. The peace of God that passes understanding, and then right after that, it's followed up with the thinking of verse 8. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true. Something that is true. We look through glass darkly. You don't really know the whole truth. You're filling in gaps and assumptions. So, but true is completeness. Whatsoever things are honest. Whatsoever things are just. Whatsoever things are pure. Whatsoever things are lovely. Whatsoever things are of a good report. If there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Those things which you have both learned and received and heard and seen in me do, and the God of peace shall be with you. God of peace, but think on these things, verse 8, latter for a few words. Think on these things. So, how easily do we jump to a negative thought? How easily do we want to conclude about the amount of social information I gather right now is off of Facebook, because I've not been socializing. I have been staying in. I was called back to work today, but I went to town. I went to my office, and I locked the doors, and I stayed there, and I came home. Yeah, there was no conversing. There was no visiting. I'm taking it serious, and others are, but social media, Facebook is where I get a lot of things. And we do know that Ripple County has 2 cases right now. It won't take long for 2 cases to spread everywhere with the connections and with things network. But the 2 cases, did you see some of the negative comments? Well, who are they? Who's the 2? People were mad at the 2 people. And Jan Laurel even included on her Facebook thing, it's not their fault. They didn't want to be sick. They didn't do it on purpose. Don't be angry. But a lot of people were lashing out, and if you follow social media and read through other places, they're getting mad at people that got sick. That's thinking evil. Well, he meant to do it. He should have followed the rules. He should have done that. He should have done that. We're thinking evil. Where's the compassion of, well, hope they get better? Instead of hoping they get better, it's like, well, it's their fault. We jump evil. And the world does it worse, but God's people does it too. And we need to control our minds. Control our thoughts. Think on pure things. Think on honest things. Let the Spirit of God reign in our hearts, that we are more than conquerors to Him. As Brother Donnie included in his prayer, Dad included in his prayer request, we're more than conquerors through him. What are we conquering? One of the battles I lose the most is my mind. I need to conquer the mind of my flesh by bringing that into captivity, as we read in Corinthians as well at times. But what are you conquering? If you're not conquering your mind, you're not going to conquer your action, but our thoughts. Think on pure things. The example that we find in the teaching of Christ about the one that the demons are expelled out of, and nothing is put back in, what happens? 7 demons can be expelled out there, but if you don't put Christ back in, they're going to come back and be worse, right? There will be more of them. So, you want to control your bad thoughts? Then get good thoughts in place of them. In John 13, the world sees, and there is a difference between sincerity and this compassion, this love that we have one towards another. And this word know, I want us to consider the word know. The world knows who we are by the way we act and by what we talk about. And if we're negative, if we are just always complaining, or we're always rebellious, or we're always just all kinds of things, the world identifies with us. And they know when we're pretending. In John 13, and Jesus washes his disciples' feet. He predicts his betrayal. And in verse 31, therefore, John 13:31, therefore, when he was gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God be glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. Little children, yet a little while I am with you. You shall ask me, and as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, you cannot come, so now I say unto you, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, whence goest thou? Jesus answered, whither I go, thou canst not follow me now, but thou shalt follow me afterward. Peter said unto him, Lord, why cannot I follow thee now? I will lay down my life for thy sake. Excuse me. Jesus answered him, wilt thou lay down thy life for my sake? Verily, verily, I say to thee, the cock shall not crow till thou hast denied me thrice. So we know that Peter denied that. No, I won't. Yes, you will. They had the debate, they had the discussion. We know he did. But as we're looking at verse 35, by this shall all men know that you're my disciples. They have love one toward another. This came from verse 18 down to verse 30. The conversation goes as far as somebody's going to betray me. One of you is going to betray me. The disciples, as they traveled around following Christ, they had a common question that they discussed among themselves. They had a common debate that they discussed amongst themselves. What was it? Who's the greatest? Which one of them? I'm better than you are. I'm better than you are. I'm better than you are. They discussed who the greatest was amongst themselves all the time. But when Christ says, one of you is going to betray me, what was their conversation like? What do they all ask? Lord, is it me? Lord, is it me? Many times we point out the negative things in the disciples. We point out, their sinful natures and Peter's doubting, and Thomas' doubting, and Peter's denial, and Peter sinking, and Judas. We point out all these negative things, but I want to point out a positive, if I may, because I find it positive that they didn't point fingers. I'll bet it's Judas. I'll bet it's Bartholomew. I'll bet it's Peter. They all asked the question, is it me? Is it me? They didn't quickly think evil. Although they constantly thought about, I'm better than you, when it came time when Christ says, one of you is going to betray me, we don't find record anyway that they instantly assumed it was somebody else. They didn't instantly think negative about Judas, did they? They didn't all point to Judas. When he got up and left, they didn't, I bet he's going to betray him, isn't he? That's where he's going, isn't it? He got up and left. Christ said someone's going to betray him. There goes Judas. I bet that's where he's going. They didn't think evil against their fellow disciple. Sometimes we think evil of our fellow brother. And we assume things, and we say things, and we act in ways, and we lie, and we do all kinds of things. We as God's people, I'm not pointing fingers at nobody here. It's just an example for us to realize that we need to control our thoughts. Be more willing to accept the good than to assume the worst. In Matthew 24, but as we have just read in verse 35, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, that you have the love one toward another. And when you love someone, you don't instantly assume that they're going to do bad things. You don't just assume that they meant it bad, or they're going to be bad, or they're going to do something. You do that against your enemies, don't you? You're assuming your enemy is just trying to flank you. You assume your enemy is trying to sneak in. You don't assume that about your brethren. So, by this, all men know that my disciples, you have the love one towards another. In Matthew 24, in verse 1, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the building of the temple. And Jesus said to them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say to you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Why did they not see it? It was looking through the glass darkly, remember? Verse 38. As he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of the coming of the end of the world? And Jesus answering and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these things are the beginnings of sorrow. All these things are being pointed out right now all over our Facebook feed. Look at the earthquakes and the famines and the pestilences. Men are quick to point out the prophecy. See, this is the end time. This is the end time. This is the beginning, it says. Verse 9. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Why do you end up betraying somebody? Because you assume the worst in them, assuming the negative, and there's no love, you're betraying them. Many shall be offended. Verse 11 though says this, Many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And verse 12 says, Because the iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. We love quoting that verse, don't we? It's a very important verse to quote. It's a very important verse to be reminded of, that we must endure unto the end. But what do you have to endure through? Iniquity shall abound, but the love of many shall wax cold. When you don't love someone enough, you start thinking evil things, you start getting provoked. Many things escalate, and they get out of hand. If you go back and start, and just would have thought love first instead of thinking evil. If you would have not assumed the worst and not went in your own mind and allowed the dark glass you was looking through in your mind, the clouding of your mind. Sometimes, what can cloud our judgment? Think about the glass darkly. What can cloud? What can make a glass dark? What can cloud your mind but your own lustful thoughts? Your own envy, your own jealousy, lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and part of life. That can cloud your thoughts. And then you can start thinking evil. Then you can start getting provoked. And then you start acting wrong. And then you start doing things, and it can cloud all the way through. So let's control our thoughts. Don't focus on the end time of pestilences, end time of earthquakes, end time of famines, and all the one world government is going to come to pass, and the one world this, and there's all these tangible, physical things that people are looking forward to. Why don't we pay attention to the love that we have ourselves? So what are we thinking? Because I can control that. I don't, but I can. Matthew 5. intent behind it is what can make it bearable. The intent behind why something happens to you can make it bearable. Sometimes the intent is in my mind though. They meant to do that. In Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount, Christ tells them in verse 38, you've heard that it has been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. If any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. Whosoever is compelled thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give him that asketh thee, and of him that would borrow thee, turn not thou away. He goes on, you have heard, you're loving, you have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor, hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. The things that make me the maddest, the things that provoke me the most, comes up to being the way I perceive the intention. Someone smites you on the cheek, and if you take it as an accident, you're not going to get back. If you take it, oh, he didn't understand, or he didn't know this. If you have love, you are willing to give exceptions. You're not easily provoked. You're thinketh no evil. And we can take it again. He meant to do that, he did that on purpose. The intent behind an action is usually what angers me. But the intent behind the action all comes inside my own brain, doesn't it? I assume they meant it the way that they did. Well, they probably did. I'm not asking you to enter into debate because I can justify myself more than I should because I shouldn't do it at all. I just want to realize I need to control my brain, my thoughts, thinketh no evil. Charity is not easily provoked. Why? Because it thinketh no evil. So I would not think they meant it that way. They meant her. They're making plans, or they're conniving against me, or they're trying to do this, they're trying to do that. The intent that I imagine in my brain can really ramp up my anger and make me run crazy. But I can turn to someone that spikes me on the one cheek if I don't think evil, but his intention was mighty. How he meant it is his control. How I take it is my control. In 1 John 3, we find the word perceive in this passage. And that was what I was trying to point out in Matthew 5 there about how I perceive an action towards me of my enemy. What makes somebody my enemy? Sad reality is you can have an enemy in your mind and they don't know that they're your enemy. Because you're taking everything as an attack on yourself. And they're not meaning it that way. How we perceive things affects how we think about things, affects how we respond to things, and it just goes crazy. But in 1 John chapter 3, and in verse 16, I always like to relate this back to John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. If you put a 1 John in front of that, you find, hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. So as Christ died for the world, Christ came for the world, I need to lay my life down for the brethren. And the first thing I need to lay down is my perception of how they meant something, or how they took it, or thinking evil. The intention in my brain affects how I'm provoked, how I'm responding, and my thought patterns. It all goes to, am I based off of negative and evil, or am I based off of good? Well, he loves me, he would never mean to do that. He hates me, he did that on purpose. I'll respond completely different. If I assume love, I'm in the flesh. I do things I don't know I do. I say things that people take it different than I meant it. People say things, I take it different than I mean it. This is how we must conquer the evil. This is how we overcome. This is charity. It's not easily provoked because it doesn't think evil. I want to close in John 15. John 15. There's no greater love I can show. There's no greater perception I give to the world than that I lay down my life for the brother. Well, he didn't mean it that way. Well, he loves me or I love him. How I think about someone affects how I treat someone, affects how the world sees me treat them. And in verse 13 of John 15, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends, if you do whatsoever I command you. But above that, we find that once again that commandment. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. What did they do to the Christ? Put him on the cross, right? Did they mean to do it? Did they put much effort into doing it? Much planning, much sneaking? They did it on purpose. And what did he say while he was on the cross? Forgive him. He didn't perceive it as, they did this on purpose, God. Yeah, they did it on purpose. They spent years to do it. It was prophesied they would do it, but it took effort. It took conniving. It took sneaking. It took bribery. It took all the classic things of the flesh on purpose to put Christ on the cross. And then he took it in love. And he said, lay not this sin to their hearts. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And if I would realize, yeah, people do me wrong. People cheat me. They connive against me. They do everything short of put me on a literal cross. But yet I think that they did it on purpose, and I start getting evil, upset, and mad, and things go bad and wrong. But if I would love them the way Christ loved me, I would have the mentality of not thinking evil. Then I won't be provoked. And then someone that's not easily provoked ends up winning the battle in the end, don't they? So greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. So we'll skip the invitational song tradition this evening and just end with that. Do we have any further question might we have? Go ahead and stop and start again.